All right, let's do Merc first. All right, the S tier. I'm gonna put Executioner in the S tier straight up because we all know on a Mercenary it's an absolute monster. Let's just put it. Let's just get it done with. uh, great cleave, great single target damage. Not the best on the monsters, but decent enough. Destroys elites, destroys hordes. Mixes well with the Kruber abilities as well, mercenary ones. He gives it extra cleave, extra crit, and extra power. If you consider everything that Merc has, right? Straight up, great weapon. Top of the line. I don't think anything else besides. No, actually, I don't think anything else actually matches when it comes to S tier. A tier, very easy picks. Spear has a great mobility, and by mobility I meant it's doesn't slow you down as much when you attack. It means you can attack and move, attack and move, attack and move. That's what my mobility. Also, if you want to get a little bit like a speed tech, you can just charge it heavy and run. You can hold the heavy and run. That's one of the downsides of the execution, is that when you hit with it, it slows you down and you can't dodge indefinitely, unlike with this spear. But it's still not. It's just lacks slightly in the damage department compared to the executioner. Executioner by itself, it's like extreme. It's a good at cleave and a good at single target damage, except bosses. I wouldn't classify it as like the best boss damage, but it's very good. The next one, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Bretonian sword works well on Merc, as it's a well all-rounder as a weapon. It has a okay single target, okay cleave. It's fast. You can also block while charging your attack, so maybe considering putting like a block cost reduction on it. You don't have to, but it's decent. I feel like this is a very, very good all-rounder. Next one, an obvious choice. Again, just like the spear, it has great mobility, slightly less crowd control. Well, a lot less crowd control, but it's a well-rounder. The only downside I would say of this weapon, it's not as good in single target damage. Like against like case warriors and bosses, it's not the best, I would say. All right, what do we have next? I don't think anything else matches when it comes to A tier. What next we'll do? I would say the sword. Sword is a good weapon, I think, on Merc, but again, you have better option than one-handed sword. It has a good mobility. It had a decent cleave, but I feel like it lacks in single target damage when it comes to armor. Even though it's okay, but it's all it is, just okay. Next one, I would say two-handed sword, B tier. It has a great armor cleave. You can just cleave through stuff like crazy. The downside of this weapon, it's slow. Mobility wise, it means when you attack you slow down, so it's hard to like place yourself while attacking, and it's kind of meh in a single target damage department. And then we're gonna go for I'm gonna put all the shields in a C tier, not because they're bad, it's because if you're taking a shield on a mercenary, I feel like you're kind of missing the point of Merc. Merc works well with two-handed weapons. It does buff certain one-handed ones like this one and the one-handed swords, but I feel like you're missing out by taking a shielded weapon on a Merc. Next one will be halberd. Oh, halberd. I have a mixed feeling on a halberd. I will put it in a B tier as well. It's an okay weapon. It's not as good as it used to be since they nerfed the I don't remember if it was the cleave or the headshot damage. They nerfed something about it. It's kind of in a weird spot because it's decent in 1v1. It does decent if you do a push stab combo, and or you could do like a heavy light. But I feel like it just get overshadowed by everything, and you have a hard time generating temp HP on this. So I'm not recommending use it in general. If you do use halberd, mason sword, and spear, I would recommend putting stamina and extra stam on your neck and stamina regen on your trinket. Now let's get to the mushrooms. I would put a mace on a C tier. I think mace needs a buff as it is right now. It does need a buff. I mean, let's face it. It's kind of surprising that this weapon doesn't have armor penetration on a left click. So it's kind of weird, right? So you need to use charge attack to hit the armor, even though in real life this weapon was used to break through armor. That's why we had a pointy sides. And it doesn't really cleave through the hordes that well anyway, and gets stuck on a lot of armor. So it's kind of like, what's the point of this weapon? I feel like this weapon is a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. It needs a clear buff. It needs a buff. It needs to have armor penetration left click, like a little bit of damage, not a lot, but still. All right, next one I would say two-headed hammer. Two-headed hammer on a merc, I feel like it's a waste. I feel like it's a big waste because I will put it in the C tier. I don't think you should be using it if you want to be optimal, but if you will do well with it, but you not do as good at anything in B, A, and C tier, S tier. It just it doesn't do enough damage. Simply put, not on a left click in 1v1, but it's just cleave department. It just doesn't do any damage. You will be better off taking any of that, or even two-handed sword. It just basically it's like taking a shield. You're missing out basically on that. You do your team a disservice. Now let's do range weapon. Let's do range weapons. Obviously you can't use the bow. I'm gonna put the handgun S tier. It's absolutely excellent on a merc. I mean, it's really good on a merc. It's almost a guaranteed kill for anything. And also you can hip fire and kill store vermins with shield. Just point blank kill it. Don't have to deal with them. Just boom, reload. The downside of the weapons, obviously, it's the fact it reloads very slowly. Well, relatively slowly to Vermintide. But it's such a great weapon to have on a merc. It's like nothing matches it when it comes to reliability. It's almost a guaranteed kill at long range. And I would say this one is a little bit difficult because I would say Blunderbuss, it's a B tier to me. Because Blunderbuss is good at one thing and one thing only. It's killing unarmored targets like maulers, hordes, blightstormers, leeches, assassins, stuff like that. If I would use it on a merc, it was mostly to kill maulers. But then again, you can just do as easy with any of these weapons. So it's kind of weird pick to me would be. I would almost always take out a handgun or repeater. To me, repeater would be A tier because repeater it's a weird weapon because it's not as precise as a handgun. Obviously, it has a lot of recoil, so it sometimes can be unreliable. But it can kill armor like store vermins. Can help with specials. Obviously, it doesn't have a precision and accuracy of the handgun, so it's kind of like in between type of choice, you know. If you're really like tired of using handgun on merc, just go for the repeater. All right, let's do the Huntsman now. For the Huntsman, I will start with the range weapon first because I think melee weapons goes secondary for Huntsman. So let's get it straight out of the way. I think the best weapon, and I actually don't think he has any S tier classes. I don't think Huntsman has any. I'm gonna start. On a Huntsman, I will start with the range weapon first, and I don't actually think he has any S tier weapons. I don't think nothing really excels on Huntsman, in a way. To me, the best pick for his range would be the bow. It's a well-rounded weapon. It has decent range, it has a zoom, it has a good enough fire rate. It's relatively fast if you think about it, right? You can zoom in with it, you can snipe with it. If you land headshots and you have a proper build with this, it's a powerful weapon, it's a good weapon. And if you play well when it comes to the hordes, you can line up a lot of units one after another, and it gives you like an okay cleave. Obviously, it's not blunderbuss when it comes to cleave, but it's a good well-rounder. To me, it's the best weapon he has when it comes to range. Now, I would put blunderbuss a B tier. Blunderbuss, it's a very niche weapon. It does one thing well, it's kill unarmored units. It's good at cleaving hordes. It's good at killing maulers, specials, except again the Packmaster. For some reason, Pachak decided, nope, Packmasters, monsters will resist to blunderbuss for shotguns. I don't know why. It's a mystery till this day, but that's what it is. Great at clearing non-armored units. It's decent against like Stormwomens as well. Even Bestigors. It will take you a couple of shots, maybe one or two. Maybe usually it takes 2 shots to kill a Stormwoman, unless you crit. But to me, it's a fun weapon to use. You know, obviously you give up the long range, so you become that like mid-range, close range type of horde clear guy. Then I put a repeater on again, repeater, we spoke about it earlier when a mercenary. It's a good well-rounder as well. The downside of repeater, it's very unreliable at long range. You'll kind of have to like stand, point, and shoot. There's no way for you to zoom in. But what it does well, it's while under the Huntsman ults, it does a lot of damage, and I mean a lot of damage. And it's kind of compensate for the lack it doesn't have a zoom. It's a good weapon. It's a good well-rounder. You can't go wrong with it, but I think bow is still better. What else we have? Oh yes, handgun, my favorite. Now, people might be surprised if I put a handgun in C tier. I think it's actually the worst weapon on a Huntsman. It requires you specific build. It requires 2 things. You need a build for it, and you need it to land headshots all the time. The downside is that to reduce the reload on it, you actually have to nail headshots, which is very difficult to do in the middle of the horde. Unless you have like a god tier aim, aimbot aim. I mean, then sure, but most people don't, and it's very difficult to do in the middle of the fight. Not only that, it's if you don't nail headshots, you don't get the proc the reload talent, and you simply kind of just stand there reloading and shooting. While the bow, you can just spam this like one after another. Obviously, you better at sniping with a handgun than a bow, but bow is just there is no downsides to the bow in that way. You don't have to wait to reload. You just spam, just spam. It requires too much investment and got your aim to be good. And once you have a handgun on your team, you can't really cleave with it as well as you can with a bow. I would avoid that on a Huntsman. I really would. Oh yeah, that's done for the range. Take the bow, mess with those 2. If you really want, try the handgun, but I don't recommend it. Now, when it comes to melee weapons, well, it's kind of easy one. Honestly, melee weapon, it's not that complicated. Again, great mobility. This is enough to 1v1. Good at generating temp HP when you need to. When it comes to melee for Huntsman, anything that allows you to survive longer, because you'll be using one of these 3 weapons to 1v1 stuff. Your melee is supposed to be secondary to your range, complement it in a way. What I personally like to use, I like to use the Mason Sword. Great weapon, good mobility, you can run away with it. You can 1v1 most of stuff. Spear, and another one. Again, good mobility. It has a good crowd control, all good enough. You can help out on a horde CC if you need to. Again, those two weapons are good at generating health. This one is a little bit better, and this one is a little bit better in 1v1. But still, both of them are good at generating tip HP and run away if you need to. Then we're gonna hit something like shields. Shields, I think they're all good. It doesn't matter. I always put shields in the same category because it's like a color. You whatever you like the most, you take. Again, good at crowd control, great at generating HP, staying alive. It doesn't matter which one you pick. It's a good pick, no matter what. But you sacrifice that single target DPS that you have with the. You sacrifice a little bit mobility as well, so I don't like that. I prefer to be mobile, able to generate temp HP, run away, do a little bit of 1v1. Now, I would put. I'm not a fan of heavy weapons on a Huntsman. I think it's actually detrimental to him in a lot of ways, because Huntsman doesn't excel in melee, so putting him in a position when he lacks mobility, I don't think it's a good idea. So anything executioner, sword, and the like in general, all these heavy weapons, I don't think they will help you as much as other picks, because you can use them. I think that you can do well with them, but I'm of a philosophy that if you're gonna use Huntsman, your range should be your primary focus, and your melee helps you. Now there's a couple of them left. Bretonnian sword, I think it's as I'll put it in a B tier because again, mobility. This is a very decent weapon in my opinion. I still prefer those two over it, because those two can generate temp HP better and have a little bit better mobility than the Bretonnian sword. But I think it's a good pick. It's okay in 1v1. It's fast. It's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. But it's a good wall-rounder on him. Also sword. I was actually hesitant to put it in a B tier because it kind of struggles in 1v1, but it's a fast weapon. It has a good mobility. It can help a little bit with the crowd control. It can also do a little bit of 1v1, anything unarmored basically. Like a boss, you can just spam left click. And with the extra crit from the Huntsman, it will do well, I think. Again, if you need to kill some good armor, I usually use you both for it. And I think it's a good weapon. Like it's a good alternative to like a Bretonnian or shields. And of course the mace. I think mace is not a good weapon in general. I think it lacks. I think it needs a buff. It can be used, but I just don't think it's that good of a weapon. It needs a buff. And you can use it on a Huntsman, but I won't. You have other options they can use. They can do better with. Footknight. You guys know what I think about Footknight. He's kind of unlucky. Footknight is unlucky. He's stuck between Merc and Grail Knight. Very unlucky for Footknight. But let's do it. I'm just gonna put straight up all the shields in the B tier because they're always gonna be a good pick. It doesn't matter which one you like. Whatever you prefer. It's like colors. Shields are like colors. Whatever the combo you prefer, take it. It works great. Now, no. To me, that my personal best weapons on a Footknight is mace and sword. The reason why I like it is because it offers him a great mobility and somewhat decent 1v1 damage without slowing him down too much. Now a lot of people, they like to use Executioner again as a good weapon, but I think he simply doesn't have that much power with the Executioner. But it's still good. Execution is still good on him. We'll come back to Execution a little bit later on. Let me see. I'm gonna put straight up Mace in a... I should actually remove it. I'll put it in a D tier. I don't think it's a good weapon in general. I don't think it's that great. I generally don't think, as of right now, there's no reason to pick it. You already, if you're watching this video at this point, if you watched my previous Huntsman and Merc, you already know what I think about it. I think this weapon is a buff. There's just simply no reason to use it, in my humble opinion. Now, I would say I was very hesitant about the Executioner sword, and I think it's decent enough. It's decent enough to be in a B tier. I think it's a good weapon overall because just by nature of Executioner sword. But I think since it's Footknight is not a merc and it doesn't have that not attack speed, the cleave and the power of a mercenary, it's kind of falls short. It's not as good. It's still a good choice, but it's not as good, and it slows them down a lot. I mean a lot. And remember, merc has a lot of, I think, more flat attack speed than the Footknight, even though Footknight can generate some with his charge and stuff like that. But Footknight doesn't have the cleave that he has to. It's still a good choice, but you will put yourself a lot of, say, not in danger, but in since you don't have mobility of the Mason sword, you will put yourself more in danger, if that makes any sense. Okay, then we have a Bretonnian sword. Again, good pick. You already know what I think about Bretonnian sword. Well-rounded weapon. Good. You can do a little bit of 1v1, a little bit of cleave. It has a decent enough mobility. Not the best, but decent enough. And you can block while charging, so that's pretty good. Let me see, next one. The Halberta. Halberta. I think there is a specific build for Halbert you can do. But I don't think this weapon is... It's just a form of shadow of itself at this point. You can do well with it, but I wouldn't pick it on the... our Footknight. Because simply, you will struggle to generate HP with this weapon. You will struggle. Like, you better not get hit, because the time will take you to build your temp HP back with this, even with a proper build, right? The push tab attack speed build. Oh, good luck on that. Like, genuinely good luck on that. The next one. Two-handed hammer. I would put it here, actually. I think you can do relatively well with it. But what would you? Why would you? Why would you take two-headed hammer on Footknight? Where you can take a Bretonnian sword, you can take a shield, an execution, and of course, the Mason sword. There is simply no reason to take this weapon. Two-headed hammer needs a buff, and if I would say, buff the cleave of it, like actually give it more cleave, or heavy cleaves, have a stagger on the heavies. It needs a buff. Now, I was actually hesitant on this too. I didn't actually know what exactly to put him, because on one hand, you can actually do relatively well with the two-handed sword. But again, it's why would you? Why would you take two-handed sword when you can have Executioner or the Bretonnian sword? It just simply makes no sense to me. Yes, you get a little bit of attack speed if you take the attack speed ult, but it just makes no sense to me. You will relatively, like, objectively perform better with the Bretonnian or the Executioner, and of course the Mason sword. It simply doesn't have the power of Merc. Like, you won't cleave as much. You will cleave decently, but you won't cleave as much. And you don't have that consistent attack speed and crit of Merc. And of course the extra cleave. Now, this one I was a little bit hesitant. I would put it in C tier as well. Because despite its shortcoming and lack of like single target damage, it's still a fast weapon, good mobility. And you can do relatively well with it. Again, it lacks that single target. And it's kind of like, you can do well with it. I don't think it's a bad pick, but the reason why I put it in C tier is because you have a better picks. Otherwise, it will be in a B tier for me personally. But shields are kind of like it's a dichotomy of the Footknight. It's that if you go for damage, you won't be able to tank decently. But if you want to tank full time, you won't be doing any damage. So it's kind of like duality of a Footknight. And again, he's stuck between Merc and Grail Knight. Now let's do range weapon as well. Range weapon straight up A tier. I would put it in a S tier, but I'm just too lazy to put the S tier. A tier, best pick. You can assist the long range. One tap, one kill, no problem. I already spoke about it in my Merc section. B tier, if blunderbuss, if you want to assist with a horde clear a little bit, maybe you take something like executioner with you, right? But you still want to do a little bit more horde damage. You can go for the blunderbuss because blunderbuss it's good at cleaning that pesky hordes. Anything unarmored, it will just get down it instantly, shredded. And of course, repeater again. A good wall rounder, has downside, high recoil, and an ability to zoom. But I think it's a well runner. I see it like as a Bretonian sword, in a way, of the range weapons. I still think they should give him ability to use the bow, because in tutorial you can, but in the main game you can't because it's a peasant weapon. Just like the spear. A spear would be amazing. A spear, if we were allowed to use it on a Footknight, would be right here, up there. He would, oh no, he would be amazing with it. It's a shame, but it's how it is. Okay, now let's do, what's a Grail Knight, right? I think some of the weapons he can't use. He cannot use the range. So range, we don't have to do range. It will be actually a very fast one. He cannot use the halberd neither. And he cannot use the... So no range, no halberd, no spear, no blunderbuss, no handgun, and no repeater. It's actually going to be a short one. All right, let's do Grail Knight now. Again, very kind of easy. Executioner, amazing weapon, kind of extreme. Great cleave, great single target damage. A good choice always. And again, Mason Sword. It's kind of well known that Mason Sword and this combo performs very well on the Grail Knight. Great for horde clear, great for single target damage. Obviously on the Grail Knight it's a little bit different, like on a Merc, because he doesn't have the attack speed of the Merc, but what he does is increase single target damage. And it's powerful, very powerful. Now A tier. On A tier I will put all the shields, because you as a player, as a Grail Knight, you have an ability to have a shield. If you want your team to succeed, get a shield on. I think you'll do well. It's easy to generate temp HP if you have HP on stagger. Just you bash your horde a couple of times, you'll be full temp HP. Easy. And if you build your character right, with enough breakpoints plus opportunist, you can even push off monks. you become like a full-fledged tank. Not as good as Footknight, but a good tank. Now, let's do the Bretonian Sword, an A-tier weapon. I don't think it's as good as those two, but it's still a good one. I think it just lags slightly behind those two. Just by a little bit. I used to play with the Bretonian Sword a lot. It just it's still an A-tier weapon. Absolutely monster. I would, if I had another rank here, I would add it between A plus, like between A and S, like A plus. I think it's, I'm starting to put it here, but I think those two just excel on the Grail Knight. Just, I'm really hesitant to put it there, but I'll put it here because just I want to be honest with you guys. What else we have? Oh yeah, put it that shit in S tier, or the third weapon. I think the longer the video goes, the more I dislike one-handed mace. Then we have the two-handed. Okay, so two-handed mace is a little bit weird because the downsides of a Grail Knight is that he lacks speed. He simply doesn't have the speed. He hits like a truck, but he doesn't have speed. So that's like every class have to give something. He doesn't have range, he doesn't have speed, but he's relatively tanky, and he hits like a truck. He has a lot of power, a lot of single target damage, right? So those two, I will put it in a B tier. Because you can do well with a two-handed mace. You can actually have two-handed well, because again, if you left click like a maniac, you will kill stuff fast. But again, without that extra attack speed, the heavies becomes just tediously slow. You basically can do the same thing with the shield. Any crowd control that this weapon offers, you can do the same one by just equipping a shield. And then people say like, well, it does good in 1v1, like on a left click against armor. Then, okay, just take Executioner Sword or a Bread Sword, you know. Like, this weapon is a weird spot, because if you want to do cleave, you have not cleave, stagger, you can just take a shield. If you don't do 1v1, you can just take Executioner. It's kind of in a weird spot by itself. Now, I'm going to put this one in B tier as well. I saw people play with it. I tried it myself a little bit, couple of games. Well, more than a couple of games, but I just don't, I think it's in a weird spot. I think this weapon in a weird spot. It's decent enough on a Merc, but I think when you have Execution on one end and you have a Bread Sword on the other, I feel like it's kind of get overshadowed by it, because you don't have the attack speed of the Merc, so it's kind of become, it just no point of using it on a Grail Knight. There's no point of using it. It's just like, why would you use it? So I put it in a bit here. It's kind of like it's serve almost, it's get overshadowed by other weapon on a Grail Knight. So I put it in a bit here. You can still use it. I think you'll do well with it. There are just better options. And of course, the last one, the sword. I'm actually was very hesitant about this weapon on a Grail Knight, because I don't know where to put it. Because you can do a Gamble Knight. It means you can get a talent that crits and does extra damage. This is a very fast weapon too. So you get a lot of mobility with it. You can just spam away on the left click, can be a lot of fun. But I think it's a very niche build, and I think you get more out of consistency of the power build than crit. But you can still have a lot of fun with it. It just, without the crit talents on a Grail Knight, I would not use this weapon. Simply put, it's like it requires, to me, it requires to have that crit talent to use it. So I'll put it in a bit here. That's for me. And that's it. That's it. I think we're done.